we'll start off with a session, and this morning is titled Successful Appeal. So those that are here in the room, in the session, most likely, various jobs that you have, either from ACA coordinator, from bookkeeper, and also you're just hands-on with the ACA. So this is going to give you an overall picture, kind of what to communicate with others on how to make your ACA local more, just more special and more, be able to meet the goals that you have for your parish. And so I'm going to share a 3-minute video. It's a webinar from our Sunday visitor. And normally what I do, I attend some of the webinars that are available online. I did share one a few weeks ago in the Bishop's weekly mailing on stewardship. So this is another one that I will also share with the parishes in the weekly mailing. And this is something that you could do when you have time to look at, that gives you good tips and best practices, and they've worked with many dioceses, many parishes, so they have a good understanding. And I'm pretty sure most of you know our Sunday visitor. If not, you maybe have worked with them or are currently working with them. And just so you know, they will also be part of the Mission Church Congress October 10th. And so they will have a booth here. So if you have not heard from them or you have not worked with them, they're going to be here. So I encourage you to attend and learn more about them as well. And then the second thing I'm going to share, as I mentioned, is a webinar that I attended a few weeks ago online, and it was really to help enhance the appeal of the diocesan level, which is what we call our ACA. So there was great highlights on fundraising and just tips on what really makes the best annual Catholic appeal for the diocese and what the parish could do at a local level to help support that as well. And then we'll work on the third. It's an ACA survey. And so the survey is going to be based on last year. And there's some questions that I developed through Google Docs. I sent it in the weekly mailing, but no one responded back. So what I'm going to do is take this time to have you fill it out. And what will help me is just to understand what you're currently doing, so I could better enhance the trainings that we're currently having, enhance some material, because currently what I've been trying to work on since I've been here in 2013 is really form a committee that would help me with the posters, material, really an advisory board that would help me understand what would be beneficial in a parish. As you know, last year, one of the things that we incorporated new is that we had separate English and Spanish envelopes. Ideally, that's what sounded good. That's what Bishop had mentioned and other priests. But when we actually tried it in the parish, it was confusing. There's Spanish envelopes when there really needed to be English envelopes. So what we did, we contacted all the parishes and we asked, what would you like? Would you like English or Spanish? 40 of our parishes said we would like bilingual, both English. And so that's what we did. There was one parish that said we prefer it in English or Spanish, and that's what we did for them. So we really are here to support you and make it easy for you to do your job as best. So during the survey is really to get your feedback on how to do my job better to serve you. And then lastly, we'll open up to questions. If there's anything that you would like to share what's successful, I'm happy to hear about it. So we'll go ahead and get started with the video, and hopefully with technology, the sound will work. So we'll start.
Celebrate your parish community. We have so many challenges in our church today. Fewer than 30% of Catholics are attending Mass regularly. Our parishes struggle to reach our children and to retain them after they complete their sacraments. A recent University of Notre Dame Center for Catholic Life study indicates that Catholics don't see a strong connection between finances and our Catholic faith, and that we're not making the connection to the mission of our parishes. But we have some hope. We have tools to help us find our way. The Bishop's pastoral letter on stewardship provides us a path for individual life, for individual discipleship, as well as for creating engaged and vibrant parish communities. Research from Chuck Zach from Villanova University indicates that part of the answer is to provide regular and open communications on how money is used and what is happening at the parish. Other research research from author Al Winsman from Gallup and from Minister Cliff Christopher indicate that we want to feel part of the direction of our parishes, and that we need to see evidence of results, of changed lives. Our Sunday Visitor Offertory Solutions can help you tell your wonderful story. We have the materials and plans that can help you gain the finances to enhance programs, focus on the meaningful works you've accomplished at the parish, and celebrate your parish community by telling everyone about the parish. Inspire and excite your parishioners through regular and open communications about accomplishments that parishioners care deeply about. You have many things to celebrate, like the following parishes. St. Teresa the Little Flower in South Carolina expanded their youth education program, and through doing this created a great sense of engagement among the young people in their parish. Through their activities, they also created a great sense of excitement and engagement in their entire parishioner base. They've revitalized the energy of the parish. St. Louis de Montfort in Indiana has a program to help feed senior citizens who are unable to get food for themselves, and they've created a great food pantry for those in need around the community. St. Patrick in California has an outstanding community outreach center. Within that community outreach center, they also have a food pantry. They reach into the inner city to try to get to all of those who are in need. Let's inspire our parishioners, create excitement in our youth, welcome everyone home, and invite them to stay and get involved at the parish, because we are living our mission and we want everyone to be part of our celebration. Celebrate your parish community from our Sunday Visitor Offertory Solutions.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to show that video is to re-emphasize what Bishop Tyson had mentioned, that we are here to focus on our mission. It's not about money, and that's not what we're asking our parishioners to do, but we're asking them to impact also our parish and our community, but we also need to educate them on what the mission is. And there's different ways to do that through bulletins, but the most important and more impactful way is verbally, peer-to-peer, one-on-one, from the pulpit. That's where it's important to share that experience and what the parish is doing. And so, is there any thoughts anyone would like to share in regards to the video, or maybe something that you're doing in the parish to really focus on the mission? Is there something anyone would like to share? If not, like I mentioned, later on in our session, we'll have a survey that will engage more questions. Will probably help with answering those questions. Okay. So recently, as I mentioned, I saw an excellent webinar, which is, the title is Techniques to Simplify and Streamline the Annual Catholic Appeal, which if given time, if time doesn't run out, I'll show you glimpses of that webinar that highlight techniques to enhance the Annual Catholic Appeal. But what I will do, I will share some highlights from the PowerPoint, and I also have a handout to share within that I found very helpful from that webinar. So one of the items that the webinar discussed are the following: fundraising, just statistics, data on fundraising, also the importance of planning the appeal, which is something that we do on the diocesan level. We have the manual, we give you a timeline, we feed you information, and what we encourage you to do is to follow the manual, follow the guideline, and our guarantee is that your goal will be met as long as you follow those guidelines. But however, I understand there's certain parishes that are volunteers, so there's limited time to sometimes follow those guidelines, and just with different parish activities, it could be very time consuming. But it's just important, and just wanted to reemphasize, we have a plan, and we would love for you to consider that plan and put it into practice in the parish. Also, the way we solicitate folks, the phase. So some of the stuff that we do here in the diocese is, as you know, Bishop Tyson sends a letter to all those folks that have given in the past. So we do some solicitation here from the diocese. However, we also ask for the parish during mid-October to start announcing the annual Catholic appeal, and there's certain items that we would need your assistance on doing that as well. They also talked about the thank you, how important it is to thank parishioners locally. So it is always an ongoing asking, having them to participate. But for those that have participated, always recognize and remember to thank them in different ways. As I mentioned, there's some parishes that send out Christmas cards saying thank you to those folks, personal letters from the pastor, also maybe a personal call, depending on just the time, but always remembering that when there's an ask, there's also a thank you that should come with that. And also just considerations of electronic that you could give online, which the video that we'll see at 11:30 will give that information. Also, our posters are here, and so the material, everything indicates that they could give online if that's something that they would like to do. And there's also information on giving, kind of statistics, how much people give. And one of the items, the sources that they use was the Giving USA in 2015, so it's recent information. So in 2014, the charitable giving totaled $358 billion here in the United States. Overall giving increased 7.1% from 2013. So even though sometimes it seems that in a parish level we're seeing it decrease, that is the case in other places, and that's where they're saying the giving is increasing. However, in a parish level, that is not the case for us. So there's people that are generous out there. We're just not necessarily reaching them or asking them. And then the highest total, and which that 7.1% is the highest total over 30 years. So it's probably one of the highest times. So again, I'll repeat, the overall giving increase is 7.1%. So people are generous and willing to give. We just do not ask enough, or we don't ask at all. And so that's it. As the bishop mentioned, we're doing parish visitations, and I've been a part of that just to be able to learn more about the ACA and more specifically on stewardship. I'm working on developing a curriculum for stewardship, so this gives me an opportunity to go to parishes and see what they're doing locally and be able to look at outside sources to see how we could work together on a stewardship plan for the future. And one of the things that I've noticed is that parishioners or leadership in the local parishes are not necessarily aware of the ACA. They don't necessarily know all the time what it's truly funding. So it's just, what I'm seeing is a lack of education or communication more than a lack of wanting to give or participate. So where do they give and how much do they give? So the people that are giving currently and are generous, where are they giving it to? So donors give within 25 miles from their home. So they're our neighbors, they're right around the corner. So, and they do that because they want to impact their community. And I think if we just think about it ourselves and reflect, we could see that we would most likely do the same thing. We would give close by, somewhere where we could see the impact of the individuals. And one of the things that is not new to us is for millenniums, for the new folks, for the new generation, they're giving less than 1/3 of what the older adults are giving. And that's not something that's new, it's something you most likely already know. So how can we reach the new millennium or the new generation? And it's mission driven. It has to be vision driven as well. They want to know what they're giving for. They're not necessarily going to give just to give. They really want to understand who they're going to impact and how is that going to be impactful to their community. So it's more of a generation that wants to see more than just simply being told where the money is going. So one example that would be beneficial is for a late witness talk, that it would be somebody from the youth program that's, for example, benefiting from the rebate that gets returned back to some of the parishes, is for the person that's being impacted by that rebate speaking about it. And I think that's where we need to draw more attention to the storytelling, which we learned about last year, and that's why we brought in more marine mold again this year. So this year is going to be more hands-on in the afternoon, and when you leave, you will have something you could take back to your parish and give an example of a good story, successful storytelling that would be from your parish. So she'll help develop that as well. So additional giving facts is that the church is growing at a less than half the rate as the fast-growing sectors. So there's other organizations that are not necessarily Catholic giving, but those people are giving more to those than to the church. And again, it's the way they tell the story. United Way is one that I'm pretty sure you've seen a video or so forth. They share a story of how it's being impacted, how they're impacting youth, citizens in the community. So that's what the church, the Catholic Church, needs to do more of. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why we thought it was important to do a video. This is our first video, and we're going to show it later on, and we would like to hear your feedback and see what you think about it. This first video, our goal is to educate folks. And so that's one of the focus that we're kind of doing from the video this year. And one of the most important things, or for myself, just looking in data, there is 3 reports that the webinar shared from the University of Notre Dame. So one of the studies that they did was unleashing the Catholic generosity. And so this report, I'll make sure it's available online and resources that you could look through it a little bit closer, but I'm just going to highlight, so how do we unleash the Catholic generosity? So the report mentioned the following: let's stop talking about paying the bills. So a lot of the parishes from the pulpit at times, or even at the diocesan level, are talking about paying the bills and not focused on the mission or the vision. So as Bishop Tyson mentioned, it's not about the money, it's about the mission. And we are here, are we sharing the mission? That's probably a question that you would want to ask yourself, ask your parish council, if you're sharing the mission of your parish and of the diocese. Or are we sharing a list of bills that we need to pay? What are we sharing, and how are we sharing it? Are we only sharing it through the bulletins, or are we sharing it peer-to-peer? So just those are questions to think about. So we all know that we're doing amazing things, but sometimes we do not know, or our parishioners don't know, because they're not being shared. And I think one of the items that was successful last year was what we called the ACA moments. And this year it was difficult to get stories from parishioners or from folks from the parishes to share those stories. And in the survey, there will be a section that if you want us to contact you so you could share a story, we're more than happy to do that. We would like to continue growing the stories. That way we could share with our donors and share with those folks that participate in that as well. And then the second report was a follow-up report to the Unleashing the Catholic Generosity. So the second study was, why do some Catholics give more than others? And again, it seems that it was a theme throughout the 3 reports that focus on the mission. And so the study mentioned the following: we need to educate them and guide them in their giving. In this case, we need to educate our parishioners. And it's our responsibility. Our general parishioner does not know this by themselves. So the average person sitting in the pew does not necessarily know. For example, I was at a parish and, they give their Sunday collection. And when I was talking about ACA, they assumed that what they give each Sunday directly goes to the diocese. So then that's when I explained, normally what happens is during the ACA, if you give a pledge to the ACA, that does come directly or through special national collections. So there's just different, educating folks. Or sometimes they'll mention that it goes to the priest, that everything goes to the priest, and that's not necessarily the case at all. And so there's just a part of educating them and guiding them to understand that better. And the third report or study was generosity inside and outside the church. So Catholics have a potential to give more money. If we do a better job at the parish level on educating our parishioners, it will overflow to the diocese and vice versa. So it's also our job here at the diocese to be transparent and also educate this is one of the reasons why we have multiple trainings to educate you more. But also I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency in regards to how the diocese is doing financially in order for you to feel comfortable because I'm pretty sure at times parishioners come and ask certain questions. They think sometimes the diocese has all the money. We're a rich diocese, and that's not necessarily the case. Most of our funding comes from outside sources like Catholic Extension. So we have a lot of, like for example, the Magnificat program, that's funded partly through Catholic Extension. And as Bishop mentioned, also the seminarians, we have a lot of funding, about, I believe, 48% from Catholic Extension, and part of it from ACA, and then another part from the Priest Retirement Seminary Collection. So as Bishop mentioned, it's about 800,000, so we have to get funding from all sorts of places. So one of the things, why do members give? And one of the things that it mentioned on one of the slides is they believe in the mission of the organization. They have a high regard for the leadership of the organization. They believe the organization is financially responsible. So those are the three key points. And so just the takeaway from the webinar was, the key takeaway was to focus on the mission, the vision, and it's our responsibility to educate our parishioners. And so since we have a little bit of time, what I'm going to first do is pass out a handout that discusses something that for me was one of the highlights of the webinar. And then since time permits, I'll show part of the video so you could get more of understanding how that could be beneficial to you and then to your parish council. Do you have any questions at this time as I'm passing this out?
I do. So one of the questions I know that parishioners have, and I'm a bookkeeper for one of the parishes, is what's the difference between the Asianum that the parishes pay and the ACA? Because aren't the parishes already contributing to the funding of the diocese? So that would be one thing. How are those funds used, or are they used differently?
Okay. Well, I know and then Sue is not here, but I'll give you my best response to that. But I will definitely also follow up with Sue to make sure that the information that I provide to you is correct. But my understanding for normally all the billing and finance services that are being done, there's that tax information, and I'm not sure if it's going to be any different now, but normally the services, the admin of the finances, that's where part of that comes. The ACA, the difference on ACA, that's directly impacting the ministries. And later on in the afternoon, you will see what exactly is being impactful.
So that would be interesting, just from, personally from my perspective, because in the bookkeepers meeting and the human resources, a lot of that administration now is being shifted to the parish. We're getting the direct billings for insurance, for medical, we're administering all that. So is there going to be a change in that, or are you still taking the same funds, but we're actually taking on some of the administration ourselves? So just being able to explain that to a finance council when you sit down and tell them, oh, I'm not really sure what that tax goes towards.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? So that would be helpful, I think, to know.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, and I think I mentioned it too, that in the past that's how it was done, and there was a change. So I'll definitely ask that question to Sue, and she would be best to answer it. But I know for the ACA, we don't have the goals for you at this training. There were still about 4 or 5 parishes that gave us some financial information in order to do the overall goals. But we're hoping to have it for the convocation for the priest, and we'll make it available online as well. But it's 16% of the Sunday collection of the annual of the previous year. So your goal is based on the annual collection of your parish for the previous year, and it's 16% of that. So just so you know. And so you all have the handout. As I mentioned, this is one of the highlights slides that was very impactful, because I normally hear it a lot here in the diocese where they talk about rich church and poor church. But in the contents of the webinar, one of the highlights was that we were not talking about money figures as rich and poor. So this was a good outline where under the rich church, as mentioned, you're focused on the mission. You're not necessarily focused on surviving. And you're focused on lives and not necessarily the money. And for example, just going down the list, so you're focused on Jesus, instead of the facilities, the maintenance, working, and so forth, the tangible items. And you're passionate about the ministry. And the folks that are in your parish working in the ministries are also showing that passion and not necessarily looking at their position or at working there as a job, but as a ministry. And that's what makes a rich church, not necessarily looking at it, as I mentioned, in money figures, but really looking at how you're impacting your parish and how you're sharing that mission with everyone that you encounter. And so this is just a nice tool to take back to your parish, share with your parish council, and just kind of reevaluate your parish and see where you line up and what changes can you do to make your parish a rich parish or rich church. So any questions up to now? Okay. I will show a little bit of the video, but I'm going to pass out the survey. Okay. And so I'll hand out the survey, and then you can answer the questions. Some of the questions you might not be able to answer depending on your position. Just go ahead and skip and just put not applicable. Just answer as much as you can on it, and then I will collect them. And this is a time to also work with those that are in your table to kind of share some of the items that you're doing. It's open-ended, where if you have a question, you don't understand a question on your survey, just let me know. And this survey was shared with 3 parishes, so they looked over it and they answered it, and I worked with them to make sure the survey was easy and clear to understand. And again, the survey is to focus on last year's ACA, and so ask a question if you attended the training in September 2014. So that's what we're focusing, is on last year's. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you say the ACA training manual, do you mean that spiral?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So as you're taking your survey, I'm going to go ahead and play the video, parts of it, so you could do it, be looking at the video and completing the survey.
Recording the session, so if there are any difficulties, we'll make sure to get you the link at the end of today's session. I thank you for joining us. I've got a lot to cover with you, so sit back and relax over the next hour. We're going to talk about something that's near and dear to you, your annual appeal. I know that most of the folks that are here are somewhere and part of the development stewardship staff, and I know that this is one of your main priorities in your position as your diocese. It's been a pleasure to work with multiple dioceses across the nation. And so I'm bringing some information to you and sharing some national ideas. And hopefully you'll take some information back with you. And if you want to continue the conversation, I look forward to talking with you in the future. Our agenda today is going to talk a little bit about fundraising and what's going on in the philanthropic world. Just a quick review. Also, I think, to have successful appeal, we have to plan. So largely, if you have to believe in the mission, we believe in the mission of the organization. So it goes then back to messaging. What is your message? And lastly, and it shouldn't be last, but it is so critical, is the thank you. It is vital. I'm encountered dioceses that have no thank you in place, no thank you mechanism. I have dioceses that want to cut costs in the administration of their annual appeal and the messaging and the solicitation process, so they'll cut out the thank you. Or they'll go from a letter to a postcard. It's critical. It is. And real stewardship, part of stewardship is thanking. We have to make sure we say thank you, and it's a generous thank you. And we'll cover that in just a few moments. Here's where I'm going to encourage you to change. We can't accept donor fatigue excuses or just the status quo. Believe that no one will participate in an in-queue solicitation process. Many dioceses have an in-queue, many don't. Some believe in it, some don't. It works. It is probably the most vital part of an annual appeal because that is where the personal act takes place in the church. And we need our pastors and our parish buy-in, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that too. Declining participation. I was talking with the diocese not too long ago, and they shared with me that their participation, they lost 247 donors. They're holding steady dollar-wise, so they're not going to make any change. Don't accept that. Don't accept sticking with the status quo. Potential shows there is more money out there. There is. We should not fear going after it. And to go after it, we need to make change. And the same goes with declining major gifts and declining gifts overall. Let's make change. And I use this a lot in my presentations when I work with parishes on the offertory program and with dioceses for their appeals. I love Einstein's definition of insanity because I try to apply it to my life as well. That doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is really just insanity. If I want something to change, I'm going to have to enact change. Okay, so don't be satisfied with the status quo. And don't think that things will change just with a lot of prayer. You have to make things change. Engage your major donors. Establish challenge gifts. These are just idea sharing today. There's so many things you can do, so I hone in just on a few of them. Those major donors, have invites to events and foster participation. And grow those that are part of your major donor category. There's, again, like I said, I could stem off and probably have 7 more presentations from what I'm presenting today. So today is just really a lot of idea sharing. Largely, if you do not have an in-queue approach, that alone will significantly increase participation and dollars that you share for your appeal. As Tracy mentioned, there's a quick little case study as one of the handouts for today's presentation from the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. We were blessed to work with that Archdiocese last year, help them streamline and take a look at their solicitation process, made some changes, but the biggest change was we implemented the in-pew aspect and helped them raise over $1 million more to their annual appeal last year. And it was well received. Did every parish do in-pew? No. Did a lot? Yes. And they have more parishes that have reached goal this year than they ever had before. And we know the pastors talk, and they're going to start telling their buddies what happened, and they did what they were told to do, and they saw success. So that alone, the in-pew is one of those webinars we could stem off of here. But that alone is a tactic to implement that will largely affect your appeal. Work with an OSC consultant. You know, I know your staff, you've got sometimes one, maybe two, maybe up to 6. If you're in an archdiocese, you may have more people on staff. So you've got more resources to pull from. But largely, most dioceses are made up of between 2 and 6 staff people. This is a huge task to undertake. You need some guidance. You need a coach. You need somebody working with you that can bring national ideas to help you do better with your appeal. And we have that ability to do so because we work with parishes and dioceses across the nation. One of those tactics to change is to tell stories. Shift from that money-driven message into more of that mission-driven message. And it's all about storytelling. Again, think about all the other nonprofits that are out there that are soliciting your parishioners. Look at the commercials. It's all about storytelling. People love to hear stories. People are drawn in by stories. Tell stories. Make them compelling. And you know what? Reach out to other dioceses and see what they're doing. Go on a little road trip. I always suggest that you've got somebody on your...
Okay, for the folks that came back in, I was just sharing some information on successful appeal. And so this was one of the webinars that I attended, and I also will make available to parishes so you could listen to the whole webinar. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, I put in the weekly mailing a stewardship webinar, 1 hour, which is very helpful as well. And so normally I look at them, once a month, and they're free. So they're available for you. If you go to our Sunday Visitor and just, put in your email, they will send you information on these free webinars that are available from expertise and best practices. So they're always helpful when you have some time to just look and hear what they're doing nationally. And I know this one was more focused on a diocesan level, but it could also pertain on a parish level as well. And so one of the, again, a takeaway would be just to focus on the mission, just like Bishop was saying in the morning, that's more beneficial. And later in the afternoon with Maureen Mold, she will be able to assist you more on how to do that and techniques, just similar to last year, but we're going to go one step forward and just give you more hands-on so you could take away an actual sample of a talk of a successful story, and looking from last year. And I know currently right now what the folks were doing was filling out a survey and about last year. And so this was going to be feedback on if you were using the manual, if there was a late witness talk. There's various questions on there. So if you were not there last year, it would be difficult for you to fill out the survey. However, if you were there, it just happens to be your first time, you could just let me know and I could give you a survey that you could fill out as well on there. So far, is there any questions on the surveys, or if the surveys are completed, you could pick up your hand and I could get those information, and that it will be helpful as well for me to tally some of that information before Maureen Mold is here, and she could better present her information on what exactly is needed from the parish. Is there any questions? If not, we will take a short break, and then as soon as Bishop Tyson comes back, we'll hand out the manuals as mentioned. The ACA posters are right at the table where you got your name badge, so you could pick them up for your parish. We also have tubes that if you're traveling, will make it a little bit easier, so feel free to pick them up. And Denny would just mark you off that your parish already got the ACA posters. Thank you.